Hello everybody. Welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing fantastic. Hope you're all doing great. Hope you're all doing well. And that you're all having a great day. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. There is a link in the description below. And without any further ado, let's jump right into it. There's been, and I don't know if you've been seeing it, you missed it somehow, maybe you weren't here the last couple of videos. News about accumulation hasn't really stopped, and it's kind of only accelerating. Over the course of, I want to say, it's been maybe 3 weeks or so, there's and I won't say the word growing frustration, but there's definitely something in the air, and I say it from my vantage point, that cryptocurrency prices, even where they are now, just don't really make a lot of sense comparative to the amount of news that we're getting. I was recently, as I always say, I was chatting with a friend about everything and the accumulation that we've seen even just since November. And it's very interesting to kind of put everything into perspective, if you will, as far as where prices should be and just a general level of, can I say the word excitement? That's a gigantic question mark behind the word for everything that's actually taking place right now. Of course, heavily in the news right now is Microstrategy. They seemingly will not give up. And I told you it would take a couple of days. People were marveling at this news as if it was like, oh my goodness, how could that be? If you missed the news recently, Microstrategy announced that they were like pausing, if you will, their Bitcoin acquisitions. They've been we're in the news every 3 to 4 months about a purchase that moved up to about once a month. And then recently, it kind of was like every week, every 2 weeks. And I was anywhere between, we just purchased 7,000 Bitcoin, 14,000 Bitcoin, 28. It was constant. It's moved up a lot faster. And this is mainly because of everything that we've heard. If you put the puzzle pieces together, it looks like as if the United States will have some kind of a cryptocurrency reserve. The entire idea of explicitly a Bitcoin reserve seems to have lightly gone out the window, and now it appears that the United States will have multiple coins as part of a reserve, as there is a crypto task force, as they're so called, who are going to basically evaluate the feasibility and which coins to have inside of the reserve. And then we also got word recently that the United States is also creating a sovereign reserve like many other countries have, and people think that that will also be an easier way to be able to accumulate Bitcoin in a legal manner, having like an actual task force who's working with it, and then like an actual place where it could also be accumulated. Then on top of that, we have, so tying all of that together is basically Microstrategy constantly buying enough Bitcoin to kind of pass by or have more Bitcoin than the US could possibly accumulate within a certain amount of time. These are the speculations that are going on. So after hearing that they were going to be taking a pause, I was like, it's not like we know how greedy they are. They're not going to be stopping anytime soon. Software intelligence company Microstrategy has devised apparently new ways to acquire Bitcoin. Oh, also on top of this as well, I don't have it here because I couldn't have rolled my eyes enough. Microstrategy has changed their name simply to Strategy. They took out the word micro from it, and that was meant to be like a grand reveal of some sort. That was also heavily in the news. Michael Saylor announced at the end of January that it had finalized the price of their perpetual preferred stock offering, which it will be using to raise funds to buy even more Bitcoin. Surprise, crazy, right? Would have never guessed that one. Publicly traded Microstrategy announced the pricing of its Thursday offering by selling 7.3 million shares of 8% of Series A perpetual strike preferred stock. Why is that? Why not just say stock? Perpetual strike preferred? Okay. also known as STRK. STRK will go for a public offering price of $80 per share. MicroStrategy estimates the net proceeds from the offering will bring in around $500 million. Got it. Which will go towards general corporate purposes, including the acquisition of Bitcoin and for working capital. No one should be remotely surprised by this in any sort of way. I didn't think they were ever going to take a pause. This is literally as if there was no pause, because they're announcing that they're going to be doing the exact same thing that they've been doing for quite a long amount of time. Whatever form of manipulation is happening within the cryptocurrency space is working like extremely well for a number of reasons. MicroStrategy for a while became like the new Coinbase. Coinbase being every time that Coinbase would announce that they were listing a coin or doing something with a coin, the price of that coin would typically spike. MicroStrategy then, took that place, where every time that MicroStrategy announced that they were buying Bitcoin or had recently purchased Bitcoin, Bitcoin's price that day and for the next couple of days would also tend to move up quite dramatically as well. The last 7 times that they've announced that they've purchased huge amounts of Bitcoin, the price has moved by 1%, which mathematically also doesn't make any sense, because I think the price of Bitcoin rises by, I think, was it 3 or 5%? Every $1 billion that ends up going into the market. And we know on any given day that more than $1 billion is actually buying Bitcoin. So yeah, as I was stating before in other videos, I could easily see the sentiment within the market beginning to shake for a lot of people. And I mean, if I can give you the most real information that you're probably going to get from anyone else out there, this is how the market always is. This is how the market always is. The market has never really changed. This is how the market always is. What we're seeing is an intense amount of manipulation from companies, from institutions. Remember the Wyckoff chart? For those of you who weren't here, if you look up, I think it's WYCKOFF, maybe that's it. You'll find it. This was a couple of years ago. And apparently it's a literal chart of lines going up and down that in a specific manner shows that institutions are basically in a certain asset. There was a guy 2-3 years ago. This guy came out with a YouTube video and he was talking about the market and where it was going to go. And he showed people the Wyckoff chart. And a couple of weeks or whatever later, he showed it again. And the Bitcoin price had literally followed that exact chart. I'm not talking about a slight deviation or something was off. His price movements had priced in the exact movements of that chart. So crypto is so big now. And as I've mentioned before, and I know that when I say things, a lot of times it may sound ridiculous or too dramatic. I know who I am. I know that I'm a rather intense person from time to time. But you have to understand what this actually means. For wealth, for money, for levels of accumulation. Rich people are doing anything in their power right now to get you distracted in some form of way so that you're not paying attention to everything that's going on. Do you remember, if you weren't here, one of the other videos, we heard from, I think, the head of the Treasury. I want to say head of Treasury of the United States of America, who announced that he was going to usher in a golden age for crypto. And the same day that happened, everyone was like, well, the prices didn't move. And I'm like, you really need to learn how to pay attention to the things that are actually happening. Really, if someone says something, they probably mean it. So yeah, the levels of accumulation now, as I've been saying at least 347,000 times over the last couple of years, are completely unprecedented. It's completely insane, the levels of movement and of money that we're seeing flow into this market. I don't have any of the Ethereum news here. If you haven't been looking, the literal constant news of the wallet associated with Trump is buying, millions and tens and millions and hundreds of, I'm not joking, millions of dollars worth of Ether literally every single day. The institutions who are buying up tons of Ether, there was just something from JP Morgan who was Ether is super undervalued. There are all these analysts who are online who are talking, they're talking about this movement upward for Ethereum, which will benefit altcoins heavily. But I guess common sense isn't very common because a lot of people are talking about that their coins are going to outperform Ether. And it's like, no. Like, yeah, you cool, awesome, amazing. But you need Ether to actually move for your coins to really have a good time. So the price predictions for Ether are still incredibly strong. We're still getting $300,000 to $500,000 per Bitcoin. I saw one person, listen, the normal 10 to 15,000 for Ether is still floating heavily out there. I saw one person say $32,000 per Ether this year. And I sit there and I usually just peruse the internet when people are saying things like this. And I was like, it all makes sense based on the levels of accumulation. It's just a matter of the market, like doing something, like actually reflecting. Reflecting is a great word. All the craziness that we've been seeing the last couple of months. That's the MicroStrategy news. Tying loosely into it. El Salvador has acquired 11 more Bitcoin. The last news that we had from them, they purchased 1. And then one day they purchased 12. And then last time I think we heard they purchased 7 or something along those lines. So they've acquired 11 more Bitcoin. Usually they tend to, or said that they were going to be purchasing 1 a day. But I think they know what's going on. If you can do more, of course, these governments and these rich people are, of course, going to do more than they even said that they would. The thing that continuously is going around, we talked about this about 3 days ago. It says the IMF, the International Monetary Fund's deal, has pressured Congress to remove Bitcoin as El Salvador's currency. El Salvador is consistent in Bitcoin accumulation despite pressure from International Monetary Fund. So what basically happened is, and to be, completely realistic about this, El Salvador announced that they were going to make Bitcoin a, what's the word? Not a reserve currency. One of the currencies, like until my brain can find the word. They were going to make it as one of the legal tender. There we go. They were going to make it legal tender within El Salvador. And then I think it's been going on for about a good 3 or 4 years. At some point, the IMF is kind of everywhere. So they were in discussions with El Salvador. We do not know about what explicitly we were not behind those doors. But they basically said if you want more funding, if you want more money from the IMF, you have to roll back a lot of what you've been doing with Bitcoin. And then the news ended up being that El Salvador got rid of Bitcoin as legal tender within their country, when apparently, from what I've been reading, is that they didn't get rid of it as legal tender, but they stopped the requirement that everyone must accept it as a explicit form of payment. So basically meaning you can use Bitcoin where you go. But how when you walk into a store and they have those little stickers and it's like Apple Pay, Amazon Pay, Babadook Pay, like all these other kinds of things. So apparently that it's now no longer a mandate that everyone must. And that's apparently because a lot of people in smaller cities who didn't have access to a lot of money or were smaller merchants, weren't using whatever the case might be, Bitcoin at the current state is not for them, certain merchants. So that's apparently what happened. But a lot of people are announcing that, it's a failed experiment, and it's not being shady. It's El Salvador. This isn't, we're talking about on any given day, maybe a couple 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 people were actually dealing in, maybe maximum, we're dealing in Bitcoin. We're not talking about the US announcing that they had Bitcoin as legal tender and then rolling it back. El Salvador has been a huge thing in the news simply because of their first movements into Bitcoin as a country. This isn't devastating by any means or any stretch of the imagination. But a lot of people are continuously rolling out the news that, oh gosh, El Salvador, it's so sad. And it's no one was really paying attention to any of this. And a lot of people in El Salvador were already using their original currency. Not everyone was not using Bitcoin. Anywho, that's the El Salvador news. Absolutely fantastic. I can't believe it. And yeah, let's move on. Also please, for the love of God, just let it happen. Please just let that happen. Because if I get any more news about this, there's a really weird thing. that happens to Cardano and has been happening for a very long time. If you weren't here since 2017 and 2018 and 19 and 20 and 21 and 22, it's because Cardano has this thing where they say that something's going to happen. And then they know this always happens. Yeah, it does. They continuously drag everyone down the year, consistently saying that something's going to happen. It's going to take place. It's going to happen in January. It's going to happen in March. It's going to happen in June. You guys don't know. It's almost August. And it's like, okay, just freaking do it. Apparently, the rumors are abound. And they're abound and unwound. I couldn't really rhyme anything there. That apparently there's going to be some kind of a mega ultra super collaboration between Cardano and Ripple. Like the Cardano Foundation and the company Ripple are happy matrimony, crypto matrimony. I'm not really sure what it's supposed to be. It says the interactions between Cardano's founder, Charles Hoskinson, and some of Ripple's executives in the past months has caused some members of the crypto community to speculate about a potential collaboration. You shouldn't be speculating. Hoskinson has said this about 38,000 times. And if you want to know why it's weird or people are like, what the fudge is going on? It's mainly because Charles Hoskinson made fun of Ripple and XRP over the course of multiple years, as many other coins did. And it's usually like this kind of like pie in the face kind of moment where I've been saying for a very long time, there's no like reason to why are you mean to people? If you created Cardano and you don't have any affinity for or like Ripple and or XRP, maybe just don't say anything. It's not actually required. But as the lawsuit ended for Ripple and XRP was not a security, and this is after Charles Hoskinson called everyone who owned XRP weirdos and all these other kinds of things, and he called everyone crazy. Remember that? Don't forget it. I remember making videos on it. You can also Google it. This was like, was this last summer or a year and a half ago? Like time is just kind of melting into itself at this point. Where basically people in the XRP space were like, something's really weird. Why is Ethereum getting is so favored when Ethereum was also a pre-mine? And he was like, you guys are crazy. Nothing's going on. You're all losers and weirdos. And then the next day he was like, okay, maybe there is something going on. And I was like, what? So now, as XRP has moved up considerably in price, Solana, for lack of a better whatever, is doing pretty well, with all the meme coins and all the scams that they have going on. And other coins are now heavilier. Is that a word? Heavilier in the spotlight. Cardano does not want to miss out. You might remember as well, we've been hearing like desperate calls for Cardano to have integration with Bitcoin. The idea is that the way that you kind of make sure that your chain remains relevant is by integrating with Bitcoin, or usually like Ethereum, but now it's kind of like, attach yourself to other major chains. As Brad Garlinghouse is rumored, no one knows, is rumored to have some kind of a seat in the White House, and might be part of the crypto brigade or whatever they're being called, and that the crypto reserve in the United States might be accumulating XRP. This is simply because it's not a Bitcoin reserve, it's a crypto reserve. And we saw the videos and the things of Garlinghouse having tea with Trump and them eating steak together and blah, 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 blah. A lot of the speculation back in November was that Charles Hoskinson was going to have a place in the White House. Apparently that has not transpired at all as far as we know. So now Cardano is really trying to buddy up with Ripple. Like really buddy up with them. In November last year, the bosses exchanged kind words. I think it's because Hoskinson knew that Garlinghouse was going to have a major position in the White House. While Brad Garlinghouse said now is the time for the crypto community to come together, push for a level playing field and clear rules of the road. Earlier this year, Hoskinson took part in a heated discussion on Twitter in which he hinted that Cardano might be integrating Ripple stablecoin called RLUSD. We had news about that a couple of days ago. They're continuously minting more. There was also some other news that is like on a couple of cryptocurrency, like bigger cryptocurrency exchanges now, but they're currently in discussions to get the Ripple stablecoin on Kraken, Binance, and on Coinbase as well. He said, we've already had a call with the RLUSD people. We are actively talking, he stated at the time. The chances of a partnership have seemingly gone up. Considering Hoskinson's most recent disclosure, he said Cardano's team keeps in active communication with Ripple's leadership regarding the implementation of RLUSD. Hoskinson also indicated the big news might be announced next month. Fantastic. That's why the word March is here. March. Yeah, and that's why I was like, please, just like, someone please announce something. I'm so tired of constantly hearing things about Cardano being like, it's November, it's December, January's here. So if we get to March and this isn't announced, I don't really know. I don't really know what we're supposed to do at that point. It'll probably be dragged around to June. This isn't really even a partnership. This kind of happens quite frequently where like a stablecoin issuer will announce that they're listing or launching or minting their coin on another chain. And it has to do with the echoes of decentralization. Echoes. We know that stablecoins, all of them are centralized. Tether, Circle, ROUSD, all of them. But you actually protect the coin and help to protect the ecosystem by not minting everything just on one chain. If you minted everything on Ethereum and Ethereum fails as a project or something goes wrong with the chain one day, well, guess what, buddy boy? No one can use your coin. So this is why we see Tether on like 14 different chains and minting and stuff all over the place. It basically has to do with that. This was very popular news. Very popular news. This is clearly going to happen. It's not really a question mark anymore for anyone who's like kind of paying attention. I think Ripple as a company would be completely insane to not mint their coin on one of the largest chains that's currently out there, even though Cardano's not been getting the best press comparatively to other coins currently out there. But in order for Cardano to like survive and do like really, really well, they basically need Ripple and they need Bitcoin. That's kind of the long and short of it. If we start hearing that millions and hundreds of millions of dollars worth of this stablecoin are minted on top of Cardano and the transactions are really picking up, the coin's price will also pick up as well. The same exact thing as far as like the integration of Bitcoin and DeFi and Bitcoin's DeFi on top of Cardano and being able to stake your Bitcoin. If that becomes a thing on Cardano, the chain will completely take off because more people will begin to use them as well. A lot of Cardano news recently, and it all revolves around like some type of a partnership or like symbiotical usage of some sort. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. I wish this wasn't so hyped up. It's just like, do it. Do it. Like what's all the discussion about? But here we are. That's the Cardano potential partnerships with the Ripple stablecoin. And yeah, let's move on. Also, this wasn't even really popular news, but just to kind of put things into perspective, there's a company called, weird name, HODL 15 Capital. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Maybe there's 15 people working there. Sure, why not? The company HODL 15 Capital has indicated that there are 70 publicly listed companies who have stock. They're publicly listed. 70 companies who have at least a minimum of 10 Bitcoin. I don't know why they chose 10, but sure, why not? 70 companies collectively possess over 612,734 Bitcoin. This substantial holding represents an estimated value of around $64 billion on their balance sheets. I posted something like this on Twitter. This was maybe a week ago, somewhere around there. And I realize and continue to learn every day how many people don't actually care about decentralization and how centralization actually means almost nothing to them. If you happen to, that was two things. That was on Twitter, and then also did a video of something very similar to it as well. And it had to do with the literal centralization of like news companies within the United States. For those of you who missed the video, shame on thee. 6 companies, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 companies control the media within the United States. And then the other article that we were going over is that BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street own OWN, own 88% of stocks on the U.S. stock market. 88%. If you weren't here, it's mainly because they have a very different strategy from other companies. So other companies are trying to trade these stocks back and forth to make, more money so that they can buy other assets and yada, yada. What these 3 companies do is that they heavily invest in things that give them some kind of essentially a form of passive income, if you will. And they use that money that they get from the passive income, from the stocks and from the dividends and from the REITs, and they roll it, you roll it back over into those exact companies, buying more of them. 3 companies, 88%. So over the years, once again, I've been a huge, advocate of trying to make sure that if Bitcoin does go to $1 million, if Bitcoin goes to $7 million or $38 million, that I want normal people to actually own them as well. Like really, no, I mean explicitly. Like I want normal people to make sure that they have a literal piece of this pie before it's all gone. So the news popping out that 70 companies have 612,000, these numbers are absolutely insane. And I think that there's no, I'm certain, I think there's no way to actually convince people. The only way I think that people can be convinced is when it's too late for them. I know that might sound dark or dystopian, but I think that it's the way that it actually is. How many people were buying Apple or Amazon or Microsoft stock in the 90s? And I mean really, actually paying attention and accumulating it. How many people do you know right now are accumulating Bitcoin in some form or fashion? You might say 1 person or 3 other people that maybe you have a group of friends, like 5 people. But on average, you probably know about a good 80 to 100 people you come into contact with at work, your family, around your neighborhood. You probably know maybe single-handedly, you can count them on one single hand. Now, what happens when Bitcoin goes to millions of dollars per coin? People get really annoyed. The rich people have everything. Yeah, of course, because no one is accumulating assets. How many people do you know are accumulating Ether? How many people do you know are accumulating XRP? All this XRP news that we've been getting. XRP, look at the price movement that we've seen quite recently. We're getting a lot of projections that base level XRP is going to $10, $15 over the course of this year. Once we have the bull run, alt season, that kind of thing. How many people do you know are accumulating XRP? And then we'll also hold on to that XRP. How many people do you know are accumulating passive income coins and staking coins within the space? Who are then staking and they're not selling, they're using those coins to accumulate more and more and more of these very rare assets. How many people do you know are buying stocks? How many people do you know have a huge amount of stocks, dividend stocks, and they use the dividends that they get from that to roll it back into it? This is how wealth is created. But the difference here is that we're in a brand new asset class that has much more finite assets than anything else that we've ever experienced. So usually on average, a lot of companies, they'll issue I think it's, what is it it must be several 100 million stocks over the course of multiple years that people can, have a chance to gobble up, but it's mainly also 3 companies who are buying 88%. 3 companies, 88%. This is why, they're worth trillions of dollars and are also holding assets worth trillions of dollars. So as we continue to move forward in this space, there's also other news. I don't have it here. There was other news about the amount of Bitcoin on crypto exchanges is dramatically decreasing. A couple of days ago, I think someone, or rather multiple addresses, took around $100 million worth of Ether off of multiple crypto exchanges. So people are calling for alt season bull run, really now, because of the amount of all this Bitcoin that's being purchased and being taken off of crypto exchanges. And I just wonder, really, is anyone actually paying attention? And as I've said before, I know 5 or 6 of you are. I high-fived myself, but that was for you. I'm glad. I'm glad that you're actually paying attention to everything that's actually going on, because we're going to hear my words and hear them as well as you possibly can. We're going to live in the world where we probably have about, I want to say 5, maybe that even might be generous. I want to say 300, 400 companies who are going to possess and own about 90% of all the Bitcoin. The rest of the Bitcoin will be spread across like very rich people and very lucky people who kind of got in early. People who have like 2 or 3 they were able to buy a number of years ago. But everyone else will be stuck working, trying to work as best they can to accumulate more Satoshis. And then it becomes this thing like, well, I knew it was happening, but I just wasn't paying attention. You know, so it's like, yeah, cool. If you hear the words that 3 companies own 88% of stocks within the United States and you don't get chills, it's because you're not really paying attention. I have so many friends. Well, let me back that one up. I have a handful of friends that I can count on one hand who are like really like into the investment game now, because they understand essentially that things are kind of rigged. These companies had 30 to 40 years to accumulate all this stuff. And you keep getting news about these people who can't afford their rent. There was just, oh gosh, what was it? One of those, oh gosh, one of these like famous people on these like real estate TV shows. He just said like a day or 2 ago, he just said something where he was like, you know, the market's looking pretty crazy. Like real estate prices keep going up. And like every time that there are new homes, they're being bought up by these like Wall Street companies. And they were like, what do you think about blah, 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 blah. And he's like, I'm certain in the next like 15 to 20 years, like no young people, no one will be able to actually afford a home because they'll all be owned by these companies. I've sent these videos and I've sent all these things to my friends. Even crazier, in that same interview, they were talking to the guy and he was like, even more so, like it's kind of nearly impossible right now. It's not like a thing. No one's buying a home. No one can buy a home outright. And you hear that prices are going to continue to go up, that these companies are going to buy everything, not some of the things. 88%? Think about that. Those are 3 companies. What if we did the top 10 companies? Do they have around 97% of the stock market? And then you go over to Bitcoin, you go over to all these coins. And I truly wonder what the future is going to look like when like the decisions are only made by the people who have the money. I mean, that's kind of the way that things basically are now, but you understand what I'm talking about. That's what I talk about, like when I mean like longevity and like being in the market, you know, like really staying in the market. And that's across everything. Staying in the real estate market. You buy a home. Like imagine the price of a home in the year 2045. Think about it. 20 years from now, how old will you be? If you bought a home now and you passed it on to someone in your family, how much would that's passing on generational wealth? All these rich people they're buying tons and tons of stock. And then they pass it on to their whatever, and how much wealth they're giving to them. And then they teach them, hold on to this. The dividends that you get from this, use that to live, but always buy more. We're seeing the wealth transfer, and no one or very few people in crypto actually care. Think about it. Since the beginning of January, and I'll even give you to like the very beginning of February, we saw like prices either trending sideways in crypto or going down. You know what happened to my view count? It also went down. The sentiment on Twitter also went down. There were a lot of people, I saw people writing, people were like, it's so crazy because so many of these like bullish accounts stopped posting. People stopped posting videos on YouTube. They all left, ignoring the market once again. Then when prices go back up, they rush back in, yeah, bullish. And it's like, sure, why not? Anywho, yeah, 70 companies, 612,734 Bitcoin. Will you allow yourself to be one of the lucky people who's actually holding on to assets? Do you have assets? Do you want to keep those assets? Do you want to grow those assets? That's a real question. You know, if you want to sell everything and get out of all the markets and, you know, continue dwelling in fiat, this is your life choice. But to those of you who are paying attention and are actively buying up tons of assets, well, I look forward to you being extremely wealthy this year and next year and as it continues going on. I do hope that you've all enjoyed. I hope that you all are having a great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever the heck you might be. I do hope it is absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and supporting, and I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.